Most people assume that getting older means gradually being able to do less, that the body slowly loses its um, capabilities year after year, and there's not really much you can do except just to manage the decline. But after years of primary care, I can tell you that that assumption is not accurate. Some of my patients who are 70 years old have a biological age of those who are 55. And the difference between someone who ages badly and someone who stays young longer is not genetics. It's five specific physical capabilities that the research now identifies as the um, strongest markers of how well the body is actually aging, regardless of what the calendar says. Today, I want to walk you through all five as a roadmap because every single one of these capabilities is trainable, improvable, and directly responsive to the right inputs at almost any age. And by the end of this video, I want to share something new in the research that permanently changes how most people view the aging process. Let me start with the first one that predicts survival directly. The first one on our list is getting up from the floor without using your hands. This is the single test that I give to my patients in clinic more than any other. You want to sit down on the floor, cross-legged if you can, and now stand back up. You want to try to do this without using your hands, without using your knees as support, and without pushing off anything. If you can do this, that single movement tells me more about your long-term health trajectory than almost any blood test that I can run. And here's why getting up from the floor requires a simultaneous combination of lower body strength, hip mobility, core stability, balance, and neuromuscular coordination. All of these things working together in real time to let you do this research published in the European Journal of Preventive Cardiology followed over 2,000 adults for more than a decade and found that the people who needed to use both hands and knees to get up from the floor had a mortality risk more than 5 times higher than those who could do it without support. Now, the fix to this is not to just practice this test over and over. You don't need to sit cross-legged and practice trying to get up, especially if you can't do it at first. But what you want to do instead is to build the structures that allow you to be able to do this test. Think of things like leg strength through resistance training, or hip mobility through daily movement, or core stability through planks and isometric exercises. You want to shoot for 2 to 3 resistance training sessions per week and daily hip mobility work, even 5 minutes of stretching. And this test becomes a lot easier over time. The second thing on our list is that your balance is still strong on one leg. I want you to try this test right now while you're watching this video. Unless you're in the car driving, then please don't. Stand on one foot and close your eyes. Count how long you can hold this. If you can hold it for 10 seconds or more with your eyes closed, your balance, proprioceptive system are functioning at a level that significantly reduces your fall risk and predicts strong neurological health. If you struggle to hold it for more than a few seconds, that's a signal worth taking seriously. Here's the biology behind why balance declines with age and why it matters so much. Balance is not just about the inner ear. It requires real-time communication between your joints, muscles, visual system, and your brain that all processes and integrates information simultaneously. As the system becomes less efficient, the brain takes longer to detect and correct postural threats. That delayed correction is what causes falls. And falls in adults over 65 are not just minor events. They're the leading cause of injury-related death and one of the most common triggers of the functional decline that leads to loss of independence. Now, the fix to this one is fairly simple. You just have to retrain your balancing system. The single best way that you can improve this is every day while you're brushing your teeth, stand on one leg and hold it for as long as possible. You want to alternate between left leg and right leg. Start with your eyes open, and then once you've mastered that for being able to balance, let's say for 15 to 20 seconds or so, then you want to try with your eyes closed. Now, before we get into the final three capabilities on this Litus, if this video is already starting to change your perspective on the aging process, please consider subscribing, as it really does help push this information out to the people that need to hear it the most. My goal is to change the way that the current primary care structure is being handled, you know, specifically in the United States, but around the world as well. And I'm trying to empower each and every one of you through tangible and evidence-based patient education. So every subscribe helps me do that. Now, the third capability is that you can walk briskly without getting winded. This doesn't mean running or intense exercise. This is a brisk, nice, fast-paced walk. I'm talking a kind of walk where you can still hold a conversation, but you're breathing noticeably harder than at rest. If you can sustain that pace for 10 minutes without stopping to catch, your breath, your cardiovascular and respiratory systems are functioning at a level that the research consistently associates with significantly reduced risk of heart attack, stroke, and premature death. Cardiorespiratory fitness, or the body's ability to deliver oxygen to working muscles and sustain aerobic activity, is one of the strongest independent predictors of longevity in the entire medical literature. To train your cardiorespiratory fitness, the fix is again intuitive. You want to shoot for about 150 minutes of moderate aerobic activity every week. This could mean swimming, playing pickleball, a brisk walk, anything to get your heart rate into that zone 2 level. And zone 2 is that conversation zone where you're working just hard enough that you can still hold that conversation, but it is strained. You wouldn't be able to sing. Capability number 4 is your grip. Strength is still meaningful. How strong? Somebody's grip is not necessarily something that most people would equate to being healthy, but the research on grip strength and longevity is some of the most consistent in all of medicine. And here's why this matters so much. Grip strength is not just a measure of hand and forearm muscle, it's a proxy for overall total body muscle mass, neuromuscular function, and a systemic physical reserve that determines resilience across every organ system. When grip strength is high, muscle mass tends to be adequate, and therefore insulin sensitivity tends to be better. You know, inflammation tends to be lower, and the BNC tends to handle physical and metabolic stress more efficiently. But on the flip side of this, when grip strength declines significantly, it signals a systemic loss of muscle quality that predicts frailty, metabolic dysfunction, and increased vulnerability to everything from infection to cardiovascular events. A landmark study published in the Journal of the Lancet, following over 140,000 adults across 17 different countries, found that grip strength was a stronger predictor of cardiovascular death than systolic blood pressure. Gets all the hype, but really you want to be focusing on your grip strength. The practical benchmark for men for grip strength is 26 kg of force and 4. Women, it's above 16 kg of force. You can buy a hand dynamometer available for under $30, which measures this in seconds. But if you don't want to do that, you can squeeze a rolled up towel for approximately 10 seconds. And if one hand's grip strength is asymmetric, or your hand fatigues very quickly before that 10-second mark, that's probably a sign that your grip strength needs improvement. The capability number 5 is recovering quickly after physical exertion. This is the single most overlooked capability on this entire light list, and the one that tells the most complete story about biological age. After a walk, a flight of stairs, or a moderately demanding physical task, how long does it take your heart rate and your breathing to return to normal? In younger adults and well-conditioned older adults, that recovery happens typically within 1 to 2 minutes. But in deconditioned or biologically older adults, recovery takes significantly longer heart rate recovery, or the speed at which your heart rate drops in The first minute after stopping, exercise is one of the most powerful and most clinically validated markers of cardiovascular and autonomic nervous system health available slow heart rate. Recovery reflects reduced parasympathetic nervous system tone, meaning the body's ability to downshift from exertion back to a resting state is impaired. And that impairment is not just an inconvenience, it's independently associated with significantly higher rates of cardiovascular events, metabolic disease, and all cause mortality. The fix to this is something we already discussed, and that's consistent aerobic activity. For additional cardiovascular support, omega-3 fatty acids or fish oil are one of the most well-researched natural compounds for improving heart rate variability, reducing arterial stiffness, and supporting the autonomic stanchion that helps drive increasing recovery speeds. Now, here's the research finding that I promised at the beginning of this video. A landmark study published in the Journal of Cell used epigenetic aging clocks, or biological measurements of cellular age rather than just calendar age, to compare the chronological age, or how many birthdays somebody has had, to the biological age, or how old your body biologically actually is, across thousands of adults. And the finding was striking. Adults who scored well across the physical capabilities most similar to the five discussed in this list: strength, balance, cardiovascular fitness, grip, strength, and recovery, had biological ages that were measurably younger than their chronological age. And we're not just talking a few years here. We're talking 5, 10, upwards of 15 years younger than what their chronological age is. On the flip side of this, adults who scored poorly over these five tests had biological ages actually older than their chronological age. What this means for you is that no matter what age you are, you can literally start reversing and turning back the biological clock. And doing each of these five things and getting better at them can change your body's internal biology. So if you literally want to start looking and feeling younger, attack each of these five tests by doing the things we talked about today. From a practical standpoint, choose one of them, ideally your worst one, and try to work on that single one gradually over about Choder's days. Okay, once you've improved that one significantly, move on to the next one. And finally, even to your old age and gray hairs, I am he who will sustain you. I have made you and I will carry you. I will sustain you and I will rescue you. This is from the book of Isaiah, chapter 46, verse 4. In my next video, I talk about 4 harsh realities that catch 95% of all older adults off guard, and what to do about each one of those harsh realities before the consequences become irreversible. If you want to check out all 4 of these, you can find them in the next video right here.